Board games, board games, it's what I'm talking about. Board games and London Toy Fair, I'm not gonna shout. I am starting off this streaming with a little bit of singing, and today I will recap many of the things that I sat through, or rather, most of the time I was standing whilst I was demoing, talking, and playing with many people around London Toy Fair. It was a lovely time, I was glad to be there. London Toy Fair recap, it's what I'm talking about. London Toy Fair recap, I'm not gonna shout. Hello and good morning, good afternoon, good whatever it is, wherever you are. And I am Bez, it is 10 a.m. UK time, and it is time for Bezzy Beats and Board Game Blether. What are we talking about today? Well, as I just said, London Toy Fair recap. How was it for me? What was fun? I will tell you two games that I think you should definitely watch out for. One of which I can definitely say and spread lots of stuff about because it was publicly available, although they need to get it onto Board Game Geek. And then the other game which I'm not allowed to share too much information about, but I'll kind of, yeah, it's from Exploding Kittens. There's anyway stuff going on. And I'll just talk about, the whole experience of talking with friends, trying stuff, pitching, how it was for me. And yeah, let's see, that's some private emails that I've got. I've got Coral Island, and that's a box that I've not had myself for quite a while. I worked on it, I might unbox it. And also, what else did I get? I got some magazines. There's all sorts of cool smarts games. I got some catalogs, and just to kind of see what people are making and stuff. And there was one more game. Oh, I can't find it. It was on the table. I do apologise. Anyway, Coral Island. I might unbox that. But yeah, basically, I'm going to show photos and talk through stuff. Hello, Josie. I hope that you're generally well. Yesterday I did do my streaming, but because I was 12 minutes late, it was something from within the hall, and Facebook automatically deletes if you're more than 9 minutes 59 seconds late. So basically, once you get to 10 minutes, they automatically delete your things. But I hope that you're generally well, and thank you for joining me for another. Oh, I guess that's a bit of building work going on outside. And hello, Jess. I see that you are also on the Facebook. Anyway, let's talk about recent highlights, living life and seeing the sights. Recent highlights, playing games and other delights. Recent highlights. So, yes, most of my recent highlights were in this building, the London Olympia. It is in the Kensington Hammersmith kind of area. There's an actual train station called the Olympia. Like, literally, I am on this photo was taken on the bridge from the train station. I mean, I cycled over and then I walked over the side of the bridge that you're not allowed to go to if you're a train. Well, you're not allowed to go from one side of the bridge into the train, and from the other side of the bridge you go into. Anyway, it's a whole thing. But inside here is where all the things were happening. And morning to you, Jess. I hope that everyone is well. Let me take a tiny step back and rush through the regular bits before coming back to the whole London Toy Fair shenanigans. So what have you been up to? What have you enjoyed? What have been some of your highlights? I'm going to talk about mine in a moment. But yes, have you played any games? My favourite games yesterday, the two games that I said watch out for, one of them, Babble by Cheatwell Games, made by Kedrick Winks. And it's how to describe this? So I played it with Dave Salisbury and Jess and the designer. Jess and Dave are from Fanboy Free, a shop in Manchester. And then there were 4 of us, which is the minimum player count. It goes from 4 up to 11 players. You know what? Let me hold that thought for just a moment, but it was brilliant. And also, just if you have any highlights or any questions, then feel free to chuck them in. Otherwise, brilliant thing. What's a little thing which is brilliant? Games are brilliant. And also seeing that the hobby and the casual market are starting to fuse together. We're getting casual games that take inspiration from social deduction, like Babble. I mean, it feels like Fake Artist in New York, um, Chameleon, Spyfall. We've started to explore from the hidden traitor mechanism, the thing moving into from the realms of having two teams. That's maybe one team has fewer werewolves and the other team has more people, but they're all villagers. They have less power. Now there's a version where, oh, there's only one person that you're trying to out them, and that was a really nice revolution that a Fake Artist in New York did, Oink Games. But then continuing that revolution using I mean, obviously nothing comes from a vacuum, and people engineer things, come to similar decisions at the same time, like Leaders of Euphoria, um, good cop, bad cop, but reskinned so that there's three teams. So that there it starts off there's two teams, but then once you're knocked out, you become these wastelanders, and then you're just crazy, kind of trying to get rid of everyone, and you're trying to knock everyone out. And there's a whole new team. And here again, there's three teams. There's the psychotherapists. There's the other. Anyway, I'll get to that in a minute. But basically, having things from the hobbyist sector informing games, having things from the casual games informing the hobbyist sector, having toys inform all of this, and having the mesh of puzzles like smart games, kind of very much in the realms of puzzles, predefined things. You play them once and then that's it. But I think that there's going to be more and more crossover. That feels like a general trend that's going to come over the next few years. Jess says, a highlight this morning is the excellent bagel I'm eating. Keep eating that bagel, keep living your best life. I'm glad to hear that. Anyway, as always, feel free to comment, ask questions, fun, like, follow, all that stuff, and I will just basically work through a bunch of photos. And so this is basically a slideshow, but hopefully a little bit more entertaining than your typical great aunt's holiday snaps. Hopefully not too many of them are too similar. This is the building, as I said. This is inside the building. I mean, check out that skylight. It's like full of light. It's a bright building, especially in the middle of the day. Even when it's cloudy, as you can see, the sky is very white, not a patch of blue in sight. But yeah, there's Wilton Bradley, not Milton Bradley, Wilton Bradley. They're a completely different company. They do more like big sporting type equipment. And this is a typical scene from London Toy Fair, a bunch of people in suits sitting around, potentially having meetings. It's basically buyers and sellers, people who are publishing things and trying to sell it to Waterstones or whatever shop they feel is good. This is, the skylights. I just think it's quite cool. Like, it's a nice building. Come on. And it's such a big building that they even have pigeons in there, inside, indoors. I mean, once the pigeons are in, I mean, I wonder if there's now multiple generations of pigeons. I wonder if they've got nests and if they have little pigeon babies. I don't know what's going on with that. There are characters who wander around. Like, there's Peppa Pig and there's the Paw Patrol people. I saw a couple of others. And in previous years, I've seen the Double Hand wandering around. And it's strange because previously I have seen, I have definitely, let me actually make that a little bit bigger. I have definitely seen small children in the past. You aren't allowed to bring children above a certain age. So I think it's, if they're like 0 up to 3 years old, you can bring them in. If they're 3 up to like, I don't know, 18, something like that, you're not allowed in unless you've got a special pass. Maybe you're part of a media company, maybe you're demoing things like for a kids review site or something like that. But generally, in the past, like 2, 3, 4 years ago, the only babies that I saw were tiny little toddlers who were basically being cradled because they could not be left alone easily. And so it's really weird seeing these giant mascots clearly for the benefits of adults. Anyway, I did see friend Cesar Alley Cat Games parading all their stuff around as opposed to Coral Islands, which I'm not going to get too much into, but that was sadly a bit of a financial, it didn't work out. And it's sad because I was really proud of the one player stuff that I worked out. And I've not even seen the manual. I finally got to my own copy as a developer on it. But it's really sad how some games, they just don't work out. Speaking of cats, Josie says the highlight today was being woken up by the cats wanting a fuss. That does sound delightful, and I hope you enjoy your cat interactions. Here's a top-down view of a tiny section of it. You can see Alley Cat Games there, tiny stand, and there's people who've got big licenses like Rocket League, and also there's lots of doll stuff and all sorts of stuff. This is stuff aimed at, it's weird because it is toys, and a lot of it is aimed at preschoolers, at toddlers, at young children. But then there's also Alley Cat Games and even VR Distribution and Hachette Board Games UK and Hachette UK, who's doing stuff based on literary stuff. And then you've got people doing jigsaw puzzles and Smart Games doing puzzles that are clearly more, even though they're not adult in the finar, I'm going to be a rude person, they are clearly aimed at all sorts of different ages. I saw the Asmodee stand. This is a bad photo. I do apologize for the blurry quality of this photo, but there are at least 27 new there's a lot of doubles. There's the Pixar double, Star Wars double, 2 double juniors, there's a double multi-pack now you can buy. And there's lots of different kinds of doubles. There's all sorts of doubles. This should give you a better idea of what one hall looks like. There's about 2 halls. This is the main one. It's not super big. It's definitely smaller in floor space than UK Games Expo. But bearing in mind, the public are not allowed here. If you wanted to go, anyone watching this could easily just say, oh yeah, I am a designer or inventor, absolutely, and no one's going to keep you out. But when you go to some of these stands, it depends on the stand whether they ask you questions. So when I went to Exploding Kittens, I had to introduce myself. I said, I've been speaking to Eric Lang, and they were, okay, if you've been... And I could have been lying for all they knew, but it's... Anyway... So you've got more stuff going on here, like just bright colors, and the stairs going up to the upper pavilion. And there you can see Exploding Kittens in the corner with their relatively small stand, but it's looking really swish. And also in the other corner, you see Cartoon Network with on the top right over there, all sorts of stuff. Is there a Marvel double? Asks Josie. I didn't. Let me actually go back. Marvel. I don't see one. I'm sorry, this photo is terrible. I do apologize for how blurry it is, but I'm sure there will be one soon if there isn't one already. But this was one of the highlights of the things that I saw. This is just amazing. So this is a demonstration version. This is about double the size of the real version. This is all made out of paper and card. It's a pinball machine, and then there's a spring where you pull it back, and there is an elastic band in that spring. You pull it back, and then there's a paper plunger, which is concertina folded, and then it goes boom, and then you've also got balls, which are not made of paper, but except for the balls and one rubber band, everything else is made of paper and card. And then it goes around the top that you can see, and you can try to do different things with it. And it's the fun of sure, you don't have the lights flashing and the score that's whizzing around and seeing what your score is, But then as things go round the side, things tickle down and it's so much fun. And then there's a 1000 bit in the middle, which is actually really tricky to get your ball into, but I managed it. That's not just put there as a prop. I legit managed to get it in there, and it only took me like 2 games. But it was so much fun. And this person beside, in the kind of blue hair, like it's brown hair with a tinge of blue, pink shirt. They are the engineer, and it was just delightful chatting to them, but I didn't want to take too much of their time. I could have talked to this person all day. They were just amazing. And also, they're a completely different industry. This is not something that I see myself ever getting into, but just walking around, it's delightful what people have. It's just amazing. I did not get to construct anything myself, but I got to play with it, and that was even better, frankly. And yeah, I just got to. I think that it's one of those things where the construction would take a day, and then playing with it, you kind of play with it 5 minutes every couple of days, or you kind of leave it out there for yourself to take some pride in. Yeah, here's another top-down shot. There's Bandai, and there's large Pokemon on a table, and people having business meetings in very comfortable looking chairs. I mean, not those hard plastic chairs on the bottom left, but check out those nice armchairs that those people are on. And that's a lot of space. I mean, obviously with COVID, the business areas, some people have like giant spaces where you can take off the mask and it's safe to. This person is from the UK. They're making puzzles out of photos. You just send them any image and they'll turn it into a magnetic hexagonal puzzle. And I just think it's really cool seeing people who are constantly coming up with this. This was a new patent in the past year. They just started trading a few months ago. Congratulations to them. I went to the Hachette Board Games UK stand. Of course I did. Flavien Loisier, friend of the show, who's been on, played Corridor, one of my favourite games. I met this person. I don't know much about them at all, but I told them about a magician, and they said, oh, that sounds cool. And then we played a game of Corridor, which was great fun. I managed to win with like 3 blocks to spare, it looks like. But yeah, it was a close game, and I just had fun introducing someone else to that game. And Nikki from Thames and Cosmos, in this thing, because there isn't the public, and because most of your important meetings are going to be scheduled, you don't have to be at your stand all day. So, of course, Nikki from Thames and Cosmos is going to wander around. Liam from Alicat Games is going to chat to the neighbors. And, you see everyone, and it's just delightful. And so, yeah, there's, on the left, Nikki with the curly ginger hair, PR person for Thames and Cosmos. In the middle, Flavien Lazia, who's bringing a load of French games to the UK, and there's Richie in the back, Flavien's partner. So yes, that is more things. Bonanza 25th edition. So 25th year anniversary edition, sorry, to give it its full title. I had a quick look inside. It seems to be basically the same as regular Bonanza, but there's big chunky pieces for the farms that you construct in. If you remember, you've got your 2 farms to start off, and then you get your 3rd farm potentially. And here the cards are just a normal basic thing, but the box looks like a book. It's a bit more delightful. I mean, although what's with this trend of making every board game look like a book? I mean, it was cool when Tortuga did it. It's cool when you go all in, and then you've got the curved bits, and it looks fantastic. At this point, it feels like it's starting to be overdone. I mean, what's Bonanza, what's trading or bean farming got to do with literature? I mean, why are we turning every board game into something that looks like a book? I don't get it. Anyway, it still looks good. So yeah, that's Bonanza. And what's up with those little screws on the wood? I mean, it's not, yeah, I don't it's kind of like a book, but it's not a book. It's actually meant to look like a bit of wood. I don't even understand what it's meant to be anymore. Anyway, this was cool. I went to the Smart Games place and they've got this robot's hand. I mean, maybe calling it robots a bit much, but you put your fingers in and then when you flex one of your fingers, that finger flexes and then you've got the thumb and then basically how you move your hand, this robot, which is a slightly bigger version of your hand, does stuff. And so I was just grabbing this piece and then grabbing the other piece and then it was just delightful. And of course, Smart Games, they are best known for their puzzles. They have 4 new puzzles coming out. Grizzly Gears. I personally love sliding, object moving, twisty turning things, and this is a game of starting off with all the trees. Within the trees, you'll see that there's some spaces, so some of them can't rotate. So currently, for example, the little one in the middle could not rotate because it's trapped by the one on the right. But obviously, if you turn the one on the right to make an empty space, then you could get it to work. And there's all sorts of puzzles where you start off with a little bear on the left and then you need to get it to the mama bear on the right. There's something similar with the deer, and there's all these different objects that, as the puzzles go on, you have to get more and more objects to their destination points. And yeah, this was a nice, fun, pleasant thing to play a few games of. I spent a bit of time there exploring what's going on, like IQ sticks. This is fundamentally a really clever arrangement of unique indentations on sticks. That sounds really boring, but they match together in unique ways. And as is typical for these types of puzzles, for puzzle number 1, it will tell you, hey, here's how to place all of them except for 2 of the sticks. Can you work out which 2 of the sticks goes where? Of course you can. It will take you like a few seconds to do. And then it goes to like the ultimate challenge where you start off with 2 and then there's like 8 sticks that you don't know where to go, but there's still only one solution because those 2 particular sticks limit it. But you need to kind of start working out an embedded nest of possibilities. And I do find that with most of these things, you start off with the easy and then I skip a few and then I go to the junior ones where it's like, okay, now it's quite fun. IQ Love, this was an interesting one, which was, there's nothing cool or unique happening here except that the board is shaped like a heart. I mean, that's quite cute, right? And it feels like something that I might want to give as a present, maybe to, a friend or whoever, as an expression of love. And also the other cool thing that they did is they've got a heart-shaped indentation on one side and then a square-shaped indentation on the other side of the board. So it's kind of like 2 types of puzzles in one. And with the heart, you've got to learn, okay, I've got the convex angles here and the concave angle here, and then trying to learn my way around things. And then with the square, you've got a brand new thing. Here, IQ6, this takes the 2 different puzzles. So you've got on one side a trapezoid, and then on the other side, you've got a rectangle on the other side of the board. But you've got a third style of playing, which is the most exciting, which is to make 3D pyramids. This is just the first puzzle, because at that point, I'd already been at the stand for quite a while, and I didn't want to annoy them or overstay my welcome. And there's been a couple of people who are actively excited to see me, and they're clearly, yeah, stay here, play with our things, it's lovely to have you. But for most people, it's like, yeah, we kind of want this space for a shop that's going to come and buy a few hundred copies or thousands of copies of our game. And, I understand that it is a business place, but, they understand that I'm a designer. I'm trying to get to know their catalog, trying to think, is it possible for me to, design something for them? And yeah, I'm not sure this is really within my wheelhouse, but as a consumer, I do love it. And just this one puzzle, this was the first puzzle where you didn't have to work out anything. There wasn't any, where does this go? It was literally just construct these things as directed. And so you get to know the notation, how a 2D planes translate onto a 3D plane. And it's actually quite a bit more complex than you said. And Josie mentioned for IQ Hearts, yes, it would be great for Valentine's or a friend that you felt was particularly romantic, or, whatever. And finally, we've got Treasure Island, which is there. They only had 4 new offerings for this year, which is still quite a bit. But Treasure Island, each of these pieces, it might be 3 or it might be 4. When it's 4 hexagons, the 4 hexagons are attached with sort of 2 hexagon dominoes, but then with a link. And then this link means that you can move them around, but in limited ways. You've got to... There's a bit of learning, and this is where the puzzle becomes interesting, because it's not just, oh, I know exactly the properties of this fixed dimension 2D thing and I'm going to put it down. No, now it's, okay, well, how exactly can the ocean and the mountains go together? I need to rotate it and get to know that, internalize that. And it's all about that learning that keeps our minds fresh. And I think, yes, Smart Games, I'm not sponsored by them or anything, but honestly, they do make fantastic puzzles. So lots of kudos to them. And this is a game that I think will do very well at UK Games Expo. I think this is really interesting. This is from Cheatwell Games, who historically has done... Oh, how should I describe this? So Cheatwell Games, they've got small tinned ranges, which are super inexpensive, sold very cheaply, and those tiny tins are based on public domain games, like charades, but then it tells you what to pretend to be. Like, for people who... or maybe a quiz game where it gives you 50 questions and that's it. And the target says you buy one of them, it gives you one evening of entertainment, and then after one evening of entertainment, you feel like you've got your money worth because it was only a few quid. They also do quiz games and the types of things that you might really expect from the mass market. But here, Babble, even though this is still, I think it's very much on the upper limit for what I would call a mass market game. And it does look, a little bit more less casual and a little bit more trendy and hip and arguably unwelcoming. It's very punk, black and white line art with heavy inks going on, the type of thing that you could imagine going on as a... Oh, do I actually have... I can, if anyone wants me to, I've got one of their cards that I could probably show for a close-up of some of the artwork, but it's just fantastic, the detail that's going on. And so how does this game play? You've got 4 decks of cards, A, B, C, D. You've got one psychotherapist who's kind of running the show. The psychotherapist, let's say there's 4 players, which there were. You take 2 cards, one for each of the patients, -1 from one deck, and then a final card from the other deck. All of the so there's the psychotherapist plus all the patients. All of the patients, all of you have been having a shared vision, except for one of you who's actually just insane. And then you're playing, trying to find out who's having the different visions, trying to not let the psychotherapist know exactly which vision it was. So all the patients take a turn to say something about the vision that they've got, because as you can see here, maybe, with the card on the top left, just in the middle of the hand, you roll a pair of dice, and based on those possibilities, you will be directed to one of the coordinates of this 4x4 grid of artwork. And everyone makes a statement about the artwork that's on their mind, and then Every one of the patients gets to ask a question of one other patient. This is for you to try to work out who's having a slightly different vision. And then finally, the psychotherapist gets to ask everyone one final question. And that's all the information you get. And the psychotherapist then picks the bits of artwork. If the psychotherapist picks the artwork that is the shared vision, then the psychotherapist wins. Otherwise, if the people who are having the shared vision manage to find the person who's insane, then the patients win. And if the person who's insane has managed to escape deduction, then they win. And this is just a really fun twist on the kind of, yeah, as I said at the start, chameleon. It feels a lot more similar to that with once around, quick whip arounds. It's not the open ended questions that can sometimes slow down a game of Spyfall. Frankly, when I compare this to Spyfall, I would say that this is better game. And for 20 quid, I mean, I was like, wow, I would buy that right now. And if it had been on sale, I would have thought, wait a minute, in my bank account, I actually am in debt, so I need to sort out some. Anyway, but I think this will do really well at UK Games Expo. Apparently, Cheatwell are going there this year. So yeah, that is Babble, a great game and one of the games to watch out for. Went out to an Iranian restaurant. This is Kashka Bodem Jun on the top left, yogurt and Bodem Jun. Yogurt and aubergine, sorry. It's Mirza Gosemi on the bottom right, which is aubergine smoked. On the bottom left, we've got some yogurt mixed with garlic, and on the top right, some hummus. And this is a mixed appetizer. Quite often you have it with multiple people, but I quite often enjoy, rather than having a main course, just having a whole bunch of mixed appetizers together. And I was there with the lovely Dave Salisbury of Fanboy Free and Jess, who I just met. And we had a lovely conversation, and Dave gave me lots of ideas for future. I'm thinking that with a game about wee whimsical creatures and trying to identify them after someone makes noises, I might be potentially doing cards specially for particular retailers. So potentially sending like 54 copies of one promo card to the Lidiquist, and then sending 50 or 100, however many feel like the right number, to Fanboy Free. And then the idea is that anyone who buys my game in their store will get one of these, or anyone who comes into the store and shows a copy of a game about wee whimsical creatures and try to identify them after someone makes noises, well then whoever's working at the store will just get given one of these cards. And it will be a way of encouraging people into the shop, and also a way of keeping the game alive and at the forefront of people's minds. But then down the line, like in a year's time or whatever, or maybe even towards the end of the year, these cards might be part of a thing where, yeah, I put them together as some sort of expansion pack or second edition. And so I don't want it to be like even if you aren't, if you're outside of the UK, there's no way that you'd be able to get to Manchester. But I still want there to be the possibility of you getting that. I don't like you need to be at this one event, otherwise you don't get it. But yeah, it kind of, you need to be at Fanboy Free, otherwise you won't. And I'm trying to work out, maybe it'll have like special Fanboy Free logo branding on it somewhere, I'm not sure. Anyway, that was really good fun. And finally, just the people, Dave Weatherall, Andrew Harmon, lovely to chat to. Played a prototype of Dave's, and lovely people at Thames and Cosmos, and there were so many other wonderful people that I got to chat to. Dan Jolin, James Wallace, Ellie Dix, Chris from Tabletop Gaming Magazine. I can't remember anyone else that I'm missing that you might know the name of. But yeah, so that was the overview. Josie, I'm glad that you like the idea of the sort of wee whimsical creatures, and yeah, the idea is kind of like it would be with retailers that I or board game cafes that I particularly like. So I would invite Shaz from Hamilton and to do it, and maybe eclectic games, like kind of and leisure games, like stores that I feel like we've worked well together and we've done things together. It's not going to be based on. I mean, sure, if John Lewis came up and said, "Hey, would you do this for us, and we'll start printing this game, or we'll start buying thousands of copies of this game," sure, there might be a financially motivated version of that, but it's also a way to push people towards places that I think are cool. And it might be like, yeah, each month one of them comes out. But anyway, I'm glad that you're on board with the idea. Yeah, the rest of London Toy Fair. And again, if you've got any questions, then feel free to ask them. Oh, other game to watch out for. So the first game to watch out for I mentioned was Babble. The other game to watch out for is something from Exploding Kittens. I'm not allowed to share my photos. They said that, please, this is just a prototype. We don't want people seeing it. We are going to show this on our social media over the next week and start asking people if they understand how to play the game. So I saw 2 new games from Exploding Kittens. One of them was a simple card game that is even simpler than Exploding Kittens itself. But looking at it, I can see that it really pushes for that mean stealing idea, and like you're stealing things and then putting them in. It's really super simple rules, but I can tell that there's going to be the potential for hilarity and people spending an evening playing a few games of this, and yeah, getting a meta game of picking on different people. It's super simple, and yeah, there's basically 2 possible actions. You choose one of them, flip over a card, and I'm not going to tell you any more about the game because I feel like that would be beyond what I meant to share. But obviously they want me telling you that their games are good. Their other game, which is going to be a bit more exciting for people watching this show, is a fusion of 2 completely different genres. I mean, have we ever seen a social deduction game with dexterity? I mean, we've had social deduction mixed with art. We've had, I mean, obviously social deduction and conversation. I mean, that's the normal way it goes. But, and, I'm not going to give too many details, but like the dexterity bits, like the components are really well produced. It feels like, yeah, this is fun and it's really accessible. And the fact that you're going to adapt to your group. So if you've got one person, I feel like even though there's a rule of you've got to just use one hand, I did give it a bit of a test drive myself, and I realized that there's wee bits where I can sort of do things to my advantage with one hand. But yeah, it feels like there might be one rule that I would like one tiny bit, but then there's also an advanced mode for people who are super into the game and then want to add extra roles. Imagine like the difference between werewolf with no extra things and then ultimate werewolf with all the extra roles. It's kind of like that. And Josie says, with dexterity, I'm probably screwed. Social deduction, I'm good at though. And that's the interesting thing, because if you were on one team, then if you're bad at dexterity anyway, then in a way it would make it even easier for you to play as the traitor. And yeah, it's just really interesting. And then, of course, if the table is really bad at dexterity, then you might house rule that you have like one less But yeah, and hello, Charles. It is lovely to see you. But yeah, this from Exploding Kittens. I am really impressed by what the two games that they've got coming out this year. I feel like Exploding Kittens was pretty good. Let's be honest. I mean, people dismiss it, but the excitement of Russian roulette, the flipping over a card, seeing whether you lose instantly or not, that is a good basis for a game that hadn't really been done before. Not in that pure way. I mean, for all the people saying, oh, it was basically just because the oatmeal has millions of followers, and sure, that's a big part of it. But I think it was also a really good, well made game. And I mean, that is, of course, where it started. I do personally believe that Bears versus Babies was, and, Fro Burrito, Fro Taco, like those are, Fro Burrito and Fro Avocado are like, good, solid, fun twists. And then, we've got the little words which, oh, that's all right. And then Cat's Mouth, that's all right. And then their latest game, wow, that's like the card game, wow, that's got a surprising amount of stuff that could be going on with their with super simple rules. And then this new game, which is a fusion unlike any I've seen being done before, and with Eric Lang at the helm of this ship, overseeing a great team of designers, I think that you're going to continue to see better and better stuff from this studio. So I'm actually really excited for that. Anyway, so that's my overview of everyone else's stuff. How was it for me? I got introductions to one of the actual Gibsons. So Gibsons, it's obviously based on a family who are called Gibsons, and I got to meet Kate Gibson, which was lovely, and yeah, chatting about the London Underground and that whole line, and how Andrew Harmon and Tony Boydell have developed little games. And it feels like there's a whole fusion, especially at Gibson's, where Andrew Harmon, Tony Boydell, Dave Weatherall, Emma May, all people who are, again, this feels like the biggest trend going forwards. It's been happening. There's going to be a bigger and bigger fusion between hobbyists, crossover. Maybe I'm just more aware of it, but there is innovation happening in both spaces. And some of that stuff, like with the social deduction, strip out the complexity, bring it to mass market. With the mass market stuff, get those toys and bring it to, and you can still have great games with that simplicity. And I'm going to try and make some contacts. And I do feel like, yeah, the couple of games that I took a bunch of copies of a game about wee whimsical creatures and tried to identify them after some makes noises, and also a game about quickly grabbing creatures that's sort of different and watching out for turnips. There were multiple publishers that said, yeah, this is a really good game. Thank you. We will definitely ponder it, and I need to chase them up. I can't think of anything else to say. If you've got any questions, then let me know. Otherwise, I am going to open this box, and because I'm an impatient person, I'm going to poke it with maybe a pencil. There we go. Cellophane's off. And so, yes, if you've got any questions about Toy Fair, then feel free to let me know. Otherwise, Coral Islands, a game that I made, well, I was part of. I didn't make this. Not to overstate my involvement. Coral Islands is a collection of two games. You've got Coral, designed by Richard Mass, and Islands, designed by Rohan Dargad. And both of these games needed a ridiculous amount of dice, and Cesar's idea was, hey, let's put them both in one box. And there's the instructions, the rulebook. Oh, there we go. I am a co-developer. I'm listed as a co-developer. Yay, there's me. And I basically, what I did is I changed some of the abilities, I tweaked a couple of rules, and I did the solo mode. Um, there's a little poem for Rohan Dargad. So the story of Rohan is that Rohan had made a game and then they died, which was a bit sad. And their friends and family wanted to, in memory of Rohan, make sure that their games got made. So it says here, unfinished business. Every day for hundreds of jobs that are done, there are still plenty that are left undone. That book you never read, that friend you never made, that class you never took, that dish you wanted to cook, that girl you wanted to date, that vacation you wanted to take. As the mountain of these jobs is built, it keeps adding to your guilt. To complete them, you need positive intent. Doing so is the only way to be content. Pay heed to those pedestrian words, don't wait. Get up and finish what's undone. Least it's not too late. And that is, let me see if I can get that into focus. That is a poem. I'm not going to give my opinion, but that is in memory of the designer of one of these games who is sadly deceased. Josie, I will answer your question in just a moment. Yes, this is for islands. You start off with a bunch of islands, and then you have longer boards for different numbers of players. These are the fish tokens for coral. Coral, you start off with that, and then you put dice on top of each other. I feel like coral is a really, really nice game. There's a whole bunch of dice. There's so many dice. It's a ridiculous number of dice. Like, you should honestly buy this game, given the amount that it's been reduced to. Buy it just for the number of dice. And then, wow, there's quite a few cards. Should I open this up? This is art from Sabrina Miramon. Spent a few days in the office with Sabrina until Cesar realized that there's no benefit to Sabrina actually being there. And then after that, I would come into the office and Sabrina would stay at home because, we could communicate just as well. But yeah, little reference cards for coral. These are all half-size cards like Ticket to Ride. And then on the other side, little reference cards for islands. You've got... What are these? I don't know what... I wonder if these 4 cards are just random extra cards. I'm honestly not sure what these are for. I might have forgotten. These are... yes, this is for coral. This is like the objectives. That's what you need to make. And I did a little bit of making sure that these are all balanced because at the start it was not. Anyway, so yeah, it's interesting because this kind of was in many ways a pet project, and I remember one day that I said to Cesar, oh yes, I can definitely make the solo mode so much better. Just give me like another week to work on it. So like 2 days of salary. And then Cesar was like, honestly, given like how the Kickstarter's done, it's just not worth it. And it was sad, but it made me realize that's a really good business decision. You can't be making every game the best possible version of itself it can be, which is sad. But you can be working on things infinitely long. You could be working on everything until the figurative cows come home. And that's not a good way to run a business. You have to be a bit more judicious. And yeah, by the way, all of those were scoring cards for coral, and these ones are for islands, if you can't tell by the back of the cards. But yeah, as time went on, I realized that you do need to, at some point, be that's good enough. I can't always be trying to make everything perfect. And I think the Bezzy bargain bags are kind of a reminder of that. Like, I want people to buy them and be happy with what they're getting. Of course I do. But I don't feel obligated, especially at the price point that they are. I don't feel obligated to then start redrawing the art because I feel like it's not quite good enough or whatever. I don't feel obligated to, playtest hundreds of times, which frankly, even though designers always say, oh, playtest hundreds of times, like when it's like the board game design lab or whatever, I don't think that's actually necessary. I think that, especially as your experience grows, you're able to understand more and more of how things will happen. Let's see if I can get that in shot. So yeah, 4 islands, you had these different abilities that were quite cool. I think that was a thing to kind of randomize it. But let me actually work through all of these because these different people, that's quite nice art from Sabrina. And I remember doing a bit of art direction. Like, I thought they were quite nice little characters. And I was quite proud of these special abilities that I did, given the constraints. And that was, but we tried to not change the hand game very much. Whereas Richard Mass, we were working quite a bit. I changed loads with Rohan because Rohan is deceased. Honestly, it was actually came to us in a far better state. And this game, it's all about, yeah, it's a really weird mathematical game of planning, and mathematical is the wrong word, but it's both chaotic and strategic at the same time. And it's just a hard sell. And that's the thing about some games, that sometimes they just don't find their market. And it's sad that that was the way that Coral Islands turned out. But yeah, Coral Islands, I'm still very proud to have been involved with it. I'm still very proud of everything with it, even though like nothing is as good as it can possibly be. Even Yogi, I mean, like, so many years off, like after In a Bind, I spent so long on that, and then after a bit more time, I realized, hey, wait a minute, this 1.5 cards, they should be slightly different. And then they were changed for Yogi. And then Yogi Guru came out like maybe 2 years later, and then I realized, hey, wait a minute, that one card, Hand on the Knee, that should actually be in the Yogi Guru deck, like looking back. And hindsight is 2020, of course. But yeah, you can't just spend years and years on a project and literally never finish it that way. But yeah, Coral Islands, the game that failed to find an audience, but I mean, I'm very biased, but I still like it. That game that I finally picked up. Josie has a question. Will he be printing any more of the turnip games? Yes, I will be printing more of them. I am going to... My current business model for this year and going forwards is I'm going to print about 100 of a game, and then if that sells out, I will decide whether to print more or do a Kickstarter or whatever. So when I print 100, that means that I'll sell about 80 to 90 because I want at least 2 copies for me, let's say 3 copies to give away to friends, and let's say 8 copies to give to publishers so that if a publisher wants to print it. So it is kind of like an extension of something that I'm basically just pitching to a publisher. And frankly, there were games in 2020 that I went to Cannes and then I pitched that if I'd spent another week on, I could have potentially sold, and maybe people would have enjoyed it. But I'm not going to run a Kickstarter for everything. But then when it sells, if I feel like, yeah, this is something that it's worth me doing a Kickstarter, people are really into it. Like, so do I have it beside me? Here it is. So yes, I am proud of it. I am going to do 2 new versions. For the Kickstarter, there will be 1 version. So these are some turnips. I'm quite proud of how the turnips came out. These are some creatures. And you will get exactly the same creatures. You'll get radishes instead of turnips, and it will all be rainbow coloured. And then there'll be a third version where it's exactly the same creatures, beetroots instead of turnips, and it will be black and white, maybe shaded. And the idea behind these 3 different versions is that one deck is enough for 2 or 3 players, but 2 decks is enough for 2 to 6 players. I've played with 2 decks mixed together, and with 2 players it works fine, but if you want a shorter game, you might want to split them back out. Now, splitting it back out is really difficult. I did put little numbers, so this is turnip number 4, this is creature number 35, and so in theory, if you mix 2 identical decks, you can separate them out by arranging them by number, and then that'll make sure that they're all properly separated. But that takes a long time. Whereas if one of them was reddish with realistic turnips and one of them was all rainbow colored, then you could separate them much faster. Within the game, I don't know how that would affect it. I think it would be sort of making it a bit more confusing. For some people, that might be too much. I would personally be excited by that level of added confusion. And I think I would really like to have all 3 graphical styles mixed together. And it's like, oh, there's this one that's red, and there's this one that's rainbow colored. And if you play with this other one, that's black and white. But, oh my gosh, I can't grab this creature even though it's a totally different color. It's actually exactly the same. Oh my gosh. And Josie asks, will the vegetables be interchangeable? Yes, they will. So you can still only grab 5 of any vegetable. So it doesn't matter whether the vegetable that you grabbed was a turnip, a beetroot, or a radish. You can only grab 5 of them. And that is the entire point of mixing them together. The rules are exactly the same, except now I remind people, oh, by the way, all the vegetables are counted as 1. I just realized that's kind of like your daily 5 a day. That wasn't intentional, but it's like, I mean, I'm not saying that you can't have more than 5 a day, but anyway, it just occurred to me. And it also has occurred to me that maybe I want to buy some beetroot juice. That stuff is really good. I had 4 bottles of beetroot juice over Christmas. That was the highlights of my Christmas. I mean, it was a really rubbish Christmas with COVID and everything. Anyway, so that is my time. It was a delight, as always, to have you. I am going to start winding down. Let me say over to you. What are you up to? You can share, but only if you want to. So is there anything that you would like to share? Is there anything that you just want to ask if I care? Because I promise that I do. I'm interested in you. Tell me what you're up to, or if you're feeling blue, if you want to give me a shout. I don't promise I always have loads of time. Now this sounds bad. I can't always instantly reply, but if you do need a chat, like if you need a quick 5-10 minute talk, then yeah, sure, we can do that as I have an afternoon walk. Anyway, so let me know, what are you up to? I am personally having Chris over. I'm going to try and sort out the next LDEC game of the month. So on Twitter, just to bring up the screen again, there's the LDEC Twitter, and 4 times a week there is a little game. So, for example, currently on Wednesdays, and I think this is the last one because next week is a new month, and Wibble is going to be replaced with, I'm going to keep a tiny bit of suspense, but anyway. So for here, you've got 7 cards. Look at the top 4. Can you think of a word that uses at least 1 letter from each card? So for the top cards, I could think of Master, M-A-S-T-E, and then it also uses an R. You can use any additional letters you want. So for all of them, if I wanted to use all 7 of them, I could use anti-disestablishmentarianism. Yeah, it does have 2 E's. And also an L. Anti-disestablish. Yeah, and it's got an H. Yeah, so anti-disestablishmentarianism, of course, it's going to have all the letters. If you want to spend a little bit more time, maybe try thinking of it as slightly shorter words. And everyone's got their own objective. Some people just try to do any words that matches all 7. And generally what I try to do is I try to find a word. If I find something that's like 9 letters or shorter, I feel like I've done it really well. And this time there's a good few that are 7 letters exactly, using all 7 cards. And there's all these games, and so if you like word games, definitely check out the Twitter. And another one that's popular is Total, where using the numbers of the cards, you've got to find a word that matches up to a particular total. Then we've got some creativity games where you've got to think of what would match the Button Master, like New Rags or Nordic Rags or loyal underlings. And you can give there's always a new character that you can sort of think of things to give to. And then we've got the new LDEC Game of the Month. Every month, we're bringing in a new game to kind of showcase the amount of variety. And in this one, you're just using 1 letter from each card going left to right. And you are allowed to use up to 3 of them as a wild card. And here, there are, like, it's just what's the longest word that you can make. So I can instantly see fear, because you've got the NF, I use the F, you've got the EP, I use the E, AW, I use the A, and then I'll use one of my wilds to turn the AP into an R. And if you've got 3 wilds, can you find an 8-letter word? And so all of these games, we're continuing to do them. Chris does the graphics. I talk to Chris, who comes in. Well, Chris works for me 2 days a week currently, and we talk about what would be good. And Chris is also working on their own graphics for a future version of the LDEC. But yeah, keep an eye on that Twitter if you want. I'll be working on that. I'm also setting up a bank account and trying to do getting back to everyone from London Toy Fair, because there's a few people that I really should email. For now, recap and wrap up before I finish up. So yes, what have I been talking about today? Today, I talked about London Toy Fair. In a fantastic, majestic building in the middle of London with lots of people, brilliant skylight so big that pigeons are inside there. You see characters like Peppa Pig and Paw Patrol. You see some hobbyist people, and there's lots of cubicles and stuff. And of course, there's big people like Asmodee. There's also people who make big sporting things and dolls, and there's paper crafts and all sorts of exciting things. There's Pikachu and Bandai and little UK folks and folk that you can just share the excitement of gaming with, and people that you might know from Twitter and then you're excited to see again. And you might see some new editions of board games or some cool grabby things or some puzzles, and there's all sorts of stuff to have fun with. And Smart Games, yes, they do lovely stuff. And yep, this game, Psycho Babble from Cheatswell, this is definitely one to watch out for. I think it's being released in March, April. Oh yeah, this was a good lunch with Dave Salisbury of Fanboy Free. I am probably making up new cards for creatures and like stuff for, and this is Dave Weatherall prototype and Cosmos, and so many lovely people. And I had some good pitch meetings, and it was fantastic, and also exploding kits and stuff to watch out for. If you want to check me out, of course, I am Stuff by Bez everywhere. Stuffbybez.com, stuffbybez.bigcartel.com, twitter.com/stuffbybez, instagram.com/stuffbybez, twitch.tv/stuffbybez, where I stream every day at 10 a.m. UK time. Unless, there's a reason why I can't. But like youtube.com/stuffbez for all the old episodes, and stuffbybez.com/discord. By the way, if you need information on what I'm doing, I do always set up the streams in advance. So if you're like, hey, is Bez actually streaming today? Check YouTube, because YouTube's the only one, I think Facebook does as well actually, where Facebook and YouTube, they show you the video with the description ahead of time. So it will tell you if there's a possible delay or something. But yeah, check out stuffbybez.com/streams. Well, I think there was a suggestion of, I think Josie suggested a topic that I might talk about like on over the weekend. But for now, tomorrow is going to be a quick 5-minute thing. And then there's no definite topic for most of the next week. I'm having Dina over again. And then, yeah, there's some guests planned for some days. There's some days when I don't have anything planned. But share, spread the word. And as always, thank you everyone for being part of this. The only thing left to say, as always, is so much love and bye, 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 bye. This is a goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, 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 bye. And now it's time to go. Bye, 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 bye. This is a goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, 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 bye. And now it's time to go. Well, I realised I should have probably done like a question of the day or something. But if you're watching this after the fact, or if you want, like, yeah, have you been to London Toy Fair? Would you like to go? And that's still the question of the day. And generally, if you've got any suggestions for future topics, let me know. But as always, lots of love. Bye bye. And thank you for watching. Bye bye.